Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with me. So for the last several years, there have been a lot of discussions in this town about US-China 5G race and Huawei. So I have decided to look on Russia, which has been overlooked by many policymakers. So my topic is the future of 5G in Russia. One second. So what has triggered me, the statement made by Israeli historian Yuval Noah Harari at the Davos earlier this year. So here he says, what will happen to politics in your country in 20 years when somebody in San Francisco or Beijing knows the entire personnel or medical history of every politician, every judge, or every journalist in your country? Will it still be an independent country, or will it become a data colony? When you have enough data, you don't need soldiers. And so my questions for research in general, like what are the prospects of developing 5G technologies in Russia, and how does the Kremlin assess and manage security risks posed by 5G? And I came up with the thesis statement, which says, also, Putin declared 5G development in Russia as one of the national priorities. Roskomnadzor has refused to grant a permit to Russian telecom companies to use commercial frequency spectrum. The increased role of state security apparatus interests and state-run companies in the economy complicates the development of 5G in Russia, compromising Russia's cybersecurity and future economy in the 21st century. So I have been looking for the historical and traditional barriers in Russia's innovation. And with the theory framework, I came up with two books. First one is Lauren Graham book, Lonely Ideas, Can Russia Compete? And second one is Jeffrey Rollberg's Soviet Science under control, under state control. So here you can see that Tsar Nicholas II, he's checking the first multi-engine plane constructed by Sikorsky before World War I. But this one has been, it was a luxury plane with 16 seats and salon and etc. But the elite has not been interested. The elite was not interested in this commercialization of planes, but rather than they asked it to develop military bombers. And Sikorsky started to do that. And now you can see there have not been any Russian planes which could compete with Airbus or Boeing. And the second story is about Kalashnikov, who never became a millionaire or billionaire due to his invention of Kalashnikov, the most popular rifle in the world and Russian pride, but moreover that Ijevsk arm factory almost went bankrupt in 1990s. The reason was there wasn't any proper patent system, not saying about also private property rights. So famously, Leo Raphael Rafe, the president of MIT, said that you want the milk without the cow to the Russian delegation back in Boston when they were asking what was the secret of the universities and the research successful research and commercialization of the products. So I'm just including here several major problems which is still here today in Russia. The first one, the paternalistic nature of the Russian government in the case of science and technology. Second, no interest in commercialization of inventions, rather than the military came first always. And lastly, no proper patent system until even today. And these traditional barriers, they still remain in Russia today, and they challenge 5G development today. But first of all, I want to talk about so what is 5G? So there have been a lot of rumors and the conspiracy theories, which Russia Today also promoted some materials. So even Svetlana Alexievich, Nobel laureate, also spread these theories during the interview. But what is 5G? So 5G is the fifth generation, which is coming after LTE or 4G, which will have increased speed, improved connectivity, decreased latency. But it's not only about the glorified hotspot Wi-Fi technology where you can download the whole seasons of Game of Thrones in a minute. But it's about major economic benefits for entire world. So here you can see that in 2035, 5G will enable 13.2 trillion dollars of global economic output. And second, the global 5G value chain will generate $3.6 trillion in economic output and support 22.3 million jobs in 2035. The challenge and one of the more practical example of this, it's in agriculture, where one farmer is enough to monitor and control the whole farmland. And that will be very, for example, useful in Russia, where there are a lot of agricultural lands, but less labor resources in the rural areas. Also, there are challenges, given that during 4G, there have been a major hacking, hacking back in 2016 of Democratic National Committee, and major hacking of NotPetya malware in 26 earlier. When the companies lost $10 billion due to that attack. Privacy of personal data will only, the challenge will only be magnituded and increased. Just one example, that by the end of this year in China, there are going to be one camera outside in the streets per 2 citizens. 5G race. Here are major 3 countries who have ambitions, and they put the national programs. Like Donald Trump's America First policy says that America will lead in 5G. Or Xi Jinping's flagship vision of Belt and Road Initiative has digital Silk Road, which is providing infrastructure in a bigger Eurasia continent. And Vladimir Putin digital economy, which was announced like several years ago, but last year, February 2019, he declared that 5G development in Russia is one of the national priorities to switch economy to digital. But you can see that it's not, even though China is leading here, but it's not about the countries, it's about the companies. The companies are leading actors. And Huawei Technologies is obviously the leader in this. In 2019, Huawei controlled 30% of patents, and almost a third of the 5G rollouts were made due to Huawei Technologies. So Huawei Technologies is leading in hardware and even in the software production of 5G technologies. There have been a lot of hay last year during the Xi Jinping's visit to St. Petersburg Economic Forum, where there have been 30 international, intergovernmental and commercial agreements signed worth $20 billion, which included agreement between Huawei and MTS, a major Russian telecom company, to develop 5G technologies in Russia. That was the one detail of bigger picture when Russia has shifted to the east. So China's share in Russia trade increased from 10% in 2013 to 16, more than 16% in 2019. And while Russia's share in Chinese trade was only 2%. Or another example that almost 60% of all imports from Germany were machinery and equipment in 2013, but now in 2019, almost a third of all imported equipment in Russia was Chinese. So it's not that equal partnership. So what was the major problem besides Huawei? That in last summer to 2019, Roskomnadzor has refused to approve permit license to use frequency 3.4, 3.8 hertz spectrum, which here you can see that's the commercial. The most commercial, the most useful spectrum for telecoms in the world to develop 5G, and this is the rising global standard for 5G. But Ministry of Defense of Russia and FSB back in the Security Council made opinion that they said that they are not giving this spectrum to telecom companies, and Putin agreed with them, even though it's threatening the federal program of a digital economy. And also, this Roskomnadzor came up with the idea to develop united network infrastructure. While by PricewaterhouseCoopers consulting firm, they said that it's going to be the most useless or dangerous option to develop 5G, even though it's cheaper, but the government will have, the state will run this infrastructure, which will complicate will be slow and a lower quality. While they said the best option is to go with a shared network infrastructure of 5G. Just to give you example, there are only 3 countries who are using United Network infrastructure for 4G now, and they're in poor countries. One of them was Ukraine before, but they now decided to go with shared network infrastructure. In earlier this year, you could see that due to the government shift, there have been a lot of changes. But before that, there was Yarovaya law, which complicates the operation of telecom companies, which brings 20% more expenses for the Russian telecom companies. They have to build up more storages for digital memory to preserve all the data. A law on a sovereign internet, it will filtrate and it will be like state censorship, United States censorship technology. The most aggressive, the most problematic also was assault on Yandex, which the law proposed by Garelkin in a Gosduma, Representative Garelkin, when he announced this draft of law, Yandex company lost 20% of its price, of its value in the shares, where it says that only 20% can be held by foreign ownership by the shares, and obviously they want that most companies, telecom companies too, they want them to see Russian or state-owned. New government personalities who came in new government, like Andrei Belousov, who is acting prime minister now due to that Mishustin has coronavirus. He's known in Russia as the most aggressive state person who is so-called economist, but he said that last year that Russian companies could give up 500 billion rubles to state budget due to to cover the state expenses. And a new minister, Shadayev, also said that that Russian telecom companies should give the access to private data to state agencies, to security state agencies. So I have here policy recommendations, which basically says that Russian state should develop public-private partnership in order to develop 5G in Russia, grant necessary frequency spectrum for 5G, because there's no other alternative technologies yet there. Development of shared 5G infrastructure, which is most cost benefit way of developing. Investment in the semiconductor industry, which is really significant in the 5G technologies. And just as a fact that the United States still has a leverage in 5G technologies, because United States is the major provider of semiconductor and the chips to China and Huawei. Russia has been medium power in software, developing software, and even Huawei bought Russian Workort program for $40 million. And the Skolkovo had some major significant innovations in software and inventions. So also Russia should adopt a flexible regime of regulations and strengthen the rule of law. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Means to get the attention they would need. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, that's perfect timing, exactly 2:30. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aziz. That's a very topical project to work on. Thank you for your very informative presentation. I invite the attendees to submit questions on Q&A, and now I'll turn to Dr. Stent.
Thank you, Aziz. I learned a lot from that. That was very informative. So I've always assumed, I mean, I've looked at the Russian-Chinese agreement, the agreement with Huawei. I know that Russia and China have now signed some new agreements about high-tech cooperation, artificial intelligence. I've always just assumed that the Russians are going to go with Huawei. You're presenting, I think, a somewhat different picture. You're suggesting, obviously, that the Russians would like to have their own input into this. So am I wrong in thinking that it's really they're going to go with Huawei?
You are not that wrong, but it's just there have been a lot of mixed messaging within the Russian government. But Alexander Gabuyev, he tweeted that from Carnegie Endowment, he tweeted that one of the Russian officials, he said that Russia has a choice between, after Snowden revelations, that Russia is afraid of NSA or CIA, and they prefer Huawei. But it's like kind of choosing between the less two evils. But Putin made clear that they wanted, they still say that they want domestic capabilities and technologies of 5G. And even this challenge with Roskomnadzor and Siloviki, it's not also not giving the access for Huawei to develop 5G technologies, because even for Huawei technologies, they still need that spectrum, that commercial spectrum. So I guess they decided just to wait, and it's on the ground, it's not like a priority yet.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Some of your recommendations would require a pretty dramatic shift for the Russian government. How likely do you think some of those recommendations are? I'm thinking in particular sort of emphasis of rule of law, or changing direction like that. How likely do you think it is that that will happen?
As I said, that at the end that the trend was negative mostly, and it will not happen really in a foreseeable future, because Belarusov, he's so-called economist, but he comes from a presidential administration, and he's very supportive of state control. And recently, there has been a report that Russia will not do auction, Roskomnadzor will not do auction to sell those frequencies like other countries. Even the United States, they facing this challenge of giving the spectrum either to military or to telecom companies, but still they giving some other spectrums on a basis of auction. But Russia has decided not to do that, and they will just want to give that auction for state-run company or state-controlled company. And other telecom companies like MTS, they are saying this is not transparent, and will have major problems with competing with state companies.
Is there any debate over that other than what you just mentioned from the Russian state company? Have you seen any, are there any government officials who are talking about maybe we should rethink kind of reserving this for the military channels?
Actually, there has been a lot of drama last year before the government shift. I couldn't like put all that in the presentation, but Akimov was the first deputy prime minister who was in charge of this digital economy, and he was a proponent of commercialization of this 5G network, and he was lobbying Putin to give this commercial spectrum to telecom companies. And he also said that Russian state should invest almost $10 billion in the coming years to support telecom companies. So he was pro business person. And he was supporting this 5G technologies to come really fast in Russia, but he didn't ended up. So he left. Mishustin's government has not included him. Yeah.
I know your paper goes into a lot of detail about sort of the historical challenges the Russian, Tsarist era, Soviet, post-Soviet Russian governments have faced with modernization and sort of borrowing and adapting. And it does not seem that even in this case, the Russian government has learned those lessons of the past. It looks again to be just turning, largely to Huawei while investing in domestic infrastructure, but has not learned kind of the approach that it's adopted doesn't really work.
Yes, even though there have been really like business-friendly ministers under Medvedev and previously, like German Gref, but it's the problem is that the leader Putin gives the priority for security and this security apparatus. And he leaves this security apparatus was making judgment and opinions and decisions on major domestic issues and security issues. That's the problem.
He'd have to change his mind if this were to change.
Yeah, and I think they still believe that they can compete, they can build this 5G technologies just by the state order and the state-run companies. But all the reports and other like publications, they don't say that.
Interesting. Well, great. Thank you. That was a great presentation.